This is a community-supported legal education channel. Find out how you can support our mission at the links in the description below. So we've got a new technology that significantly affects copyright that I want to explore today. And there's a whole situation now going on with non-fungible tokens. A non-fungible token is a digital file whose unique identity and ownership are verifiable on a blockchain. So it's using the blockchain as a digital ledger. Like the Copyright Office would keep copyright registrations. Copyright registrations don't necessarily mean ownership, though ownership is supposed to be maintained. You're supposed to tell the Copyright Office who owns the darn thing. And when you assign it, you're supposed to tell the Copyright Office that as well. But that affects infringement cases more than it affects adjudications of who actually owns the thing. NFTs are not mutually interchangeable, so not fungible. NFTs, non-fungible blockchain tokens, to things such as digital artwork are commonly auctioned in online marketplaces. The token can be bought with cryptocurrency and resold. So not the same thing as cryptocurrency, but using a digital ledger like you would use cryptocurrencies. NFTs are used to commodify digital things, such as digital art, video games, and music files. Access to any copy of the original file is not restricted to the owner of the token. In other words, just having this token doesn't act as digital rights management. It doesn't prevent access to it. It just keeps a record of who owns the thing. This could be a really good thing. This could mean that when you go to Google image search, you could maybe get a record that says, we found this image has an owner on the NFT blockchain that is used for whatever ownership. It doesn't have, by the way, this doesn't mean that there's only one blockchain. There could be multiple blockchains. It's just saying they use blockchain technology. And if you're not familiar with blockchains, that's a whole other discussion. But a blockchain is basically a very complex computer program and set of rules, set of calculations that maintain the integrity of that digital ledger. So it's like having a ledger, which would be like a spreadsheet that says, date, time, identifying information, this person owns something, that line's done. Next one, date, time, different content, different digital good, somebody owns that, here's how we identify them, here's the information about that transaction. And each transaction is maintained by the technology of the blockchain, and together the blockchain forms a complete digital ledger of ownership that should survive for all time. That should survive so long as the computers that are processing the blockchain continue to run. Even if you lose one computer, or even if you lose many of the computers, as long as there's a sufficient number of them running, there shouldn't be any way to alter the blockchain or alter the ledger. So it acts as error correction, it acts as maintenance of the records. It's actually a really cool technology. The downside is that this requires computing power, and computing power requires electricity, and of course, computer hardware, so there's cost to it. And cost and electricity means there's an environmental impact as well, which we're not going to get into here. Real quick, one of the earliest NFT projects was 2017 CryptoPunks by Larva Labs. There were some other proto-NFTs. Rare Pepes were released on Counterparty in 2014. Etheria released Ethereum in 2015. NFTs have now grown to become a speculative market. And this is in the news because recently Beeple, who has been creating daily digital artwork since I think 2007, 13 years of work, 5,000 days of works, has now sold a NFT ownership record of digital artwork, a collage of his 5,000 artwork pieces, his digital artwork pieces, his dailies, sold that for £50 million, or approximately $70 million. So this is a real technology. You really can't deny it when it starts to sell for real money, right? So what happens with copyright then? You have other technologies now where NFTs are being used to own tweets, to track the ownership of tweets. Like, here's Jack Dorsey from Twitter, whose original tweet from March 21st, 2016 has now been tokenized on tokenizedtweets.com. And then you have others here, include your wallet address and you'll get it. And then it verifies ownership. But then you have copyright problems that come up. Here is Weird Undead on Twitter. I tried to ignore the whole NFT hysteria, but what the heck? I don't give any permission, especially to random jerks, to make tokens from my content. I feel so angry. So here's his artwork that he posted on Twitter, and then someone has tokenized the tweet, which in theory is some kind of claim to ownership, which would be some kind of claim to copyright, which would be a violation of copyright law in theory. Weird Undead goes on to say, please report. I'm not sure it would make any sense, but as the author, I'm strongly against using my content in this way. If you can block and report, he tokenizes lots of works and he can reach more artists. I lost the comment, but bless the guy who gave a link to tokenized tweets. If you're in the same situation, you can fill out the form, and gives a link to this form down here on tokenized tweets, which allows you to submit sort of a DMCA takedown notice. It looks like it's a pretty good approximation of the requirements of DMCA takedown notices. So I think this is a really interesting problem with copyright. It's not that there's something wrong with copyright law. This is just property law in general. These are problems with property. If I own a house and somebody goes and submits a false deed to the recorder's office saying that they now own my house, yeah, you can really screw up ownership records by submitting a false claim of ownership. So now this sort of fraud has come into the 21st century. And you can submit a false ownership claim to an unofficial, it might be effectively official, but it's not like a government official registry, but you can submit a false ownership claim to an unofficial registry backed by the reliability of blockchain technology that you own something that's digital and you couldn't previously really indicate ownership outside of registering it with the Copyright Office. And registration with the Copyright Office comes with a fee. There's a $45, $55, $65 fee, sort of minimum, depending on what you want and what you're registering and how many of them you're registering. And so there's a cost to ownership of a registered copyright, the cost of registering it. So non-fungible tokens may be a way to register copyrights without incurring such a high cost and relying on the blockchain to be sort of the externalized cost of ownership. Unless they're charging you, you're not really paying for that. I guess that's because these blockchains want to be the first or want to be the blockchain, so they don't necessarily charge the registrant. They might charge, I don't know how they charge. Somebody in the comments can explain how a blockchain like an NFT blockchain would make money. The Bitcoin blockchain makes money because money is involved with Bitcoins. It charges a small amount of Bitcoin when a transaction is processed, and that transaction processing fee goes to the winner of the calculation that processes the transaction. That's called Bitcoin mining. But NFTs on a blockchain, where's the cost involved with that? I didn't see any exchange of a fungible good like a Bitcoin or an actual coin or cash, basically, to pay for that transaction. I'm not sure how that works. Somebody out there is paying for it in the sense of owning a computer and running a blockchain, not mining, but processing app. So that's really interesting. And those are the implications for copyright. There has to be some way to process takedowns or correct the ownership record in the ledger, because people can just go submit ownership records to the ledger. just like they could go and submit a false deed. It would be fraud. It would be breaking criminal law probably as well. But if I own a house or I own a car and somebody falsifies the title, falsifies a deed, submits it to the proper registration authorities and fools them into thinking that someone else owns my car or my house or other property, that can really mess things up. You could even fool a bank into thinking that you own some property and getting a loan, and if the bank doesn't do its title search properly, if you've ever heard the word title search, that's where the bank searches for the owner of property to try and trace it back to the correct owner and verify that the correct owner is the person applying. If that title search if that fails for some reason or isn't conducted, yeah, you could really screw up ownership records for somebody. And now we're able to do this with digital goods. So there are pitfalls in this, just like there are in real life. And that's not a problem with property ownership or with copyright ownership. That's a problem with people making false claims in general. I don't know how you solve that, but it's nice to see that there's a way to get a remedy. And so this is something courts are going to have to deal with in the future. Courts are going to eventually be presented with a case, and the judge is going to go, what the heck is a non-fungible token? And some party's going to have to bring an expert witness in to explain how this is a ownership record, and therefore the defendant claimed ownership to something they didn't own, which is like claiming copyright, and not just like it, but it legally is recognized as claiming copyright. And they have to convince the judge of that. And so the world just keeps getting more and more technologically advanced, and the law is usually a decade or more behind technology, as we have definitely seen just with lawyers trying to do Zoom this past year during the pandemic. So this is a really interesting problem, and I really like this problem, but we all should raise awareness that this is both an opportunity and a problem. Imagine if the Copyright Office took copyright records and ownership records and put them into their own government-sponsored, maintained blockchain. That could be a really good way to protect copyright registration records. That could help solve the orphaned works problem, where we don't know who owns a copyright. Part of registration could be putting that record into a blockchain that could be more easily searched than the Copyright Office's records, maybe even more easily maintained. Changes could be submitted more cheaply or something more easily. And then maybe you could make a law that if you can't find the owner of a digital good, like the orphaned works problem, then maybe the use of that work doesn't come with the same statutory damage penalty, or maybe the use of a work has to come with putting some money into escrow for when you eventually do find the owner of the work in order to prevent some kind of penalty. So it's a really interesting solution to a very complex problem, and I really like it. And I don't think we should look down on it. I think we should approach it with open arms and try to make something good out of it. I am a little concerned that there might be a bunch of NFT blockchains. And if there isn't one for digital art and one for music and one for, or if there isn't one massive registry that everybody recognizes, kind of like Bitcoin is the cryptocurrency, then I don't know what will happen if there's no de facto leader. But it's an interesting problem to have. It's a high quality problem to have, and it makes me hopeful for the future. Let me know what you think of non-fungible tokens in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and this is Lawful Masses, your favorite legal news and education channel here on YouTube. You can also find us on Floatplane and on twitch.tv/lawfulmasses on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Our channel is community supported by your monthly financial contributions on patreon.com/ljfrench, sponsors.com/law, through YouTube memberships, and through Floatplane subscriptions. Thank you to the following $50 plus supporters in the month of March: Joe Tyson, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Spirit Bear, Andy, Benjamin Hitov, Ugly Grill, Rudolph Bescherer Jr., Brandyn Abel, Torpedan, Cassandra Curran, Sovereign Tittizen, ShadowTycho, RDHDragon, and Earthbound Star. And thank you as well to the $5 plus supporters who are scrolling on your screen. I hope everyone has a great week. I will see you in the videos that drop. I love you all. Bye.
I'm not a cat.